All-Star time is approaching for the WNBA. We discuss quickly about who made it, who didn't. So we get into it next on Beyond the Locker Room. All right, so the WNBA All-Star game. It's time of year. Press release just went out a few days earlier. We're gonna take a look at what it is. A week or so ago, the All-Star teams I guess the starters were given out. So we'll go through everybody and see here. I'm just gonna pull up the list here. Boy, I tell you, the WNBA does not make it easy. This press release. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's what we have here. Boy, they don't make it easy. Thank you. Here we go. All-Star starters. To refresh our memories, and I don't think we discussed it, but Paige Beckers, guard for Dallas Wings, made the All-Star team for the starters. Caitlin Clark, of course, for the Indiana Fever. Olivia Miles, first time as a rookie, Minnesota Lynx. Kelsey Mitchell for the Indiana Fever. So those are the guards. In the front court, Aaliyah Boston from the Indiana Fever. You see a trend here, a pattern. Natasha Howard having a really great season for the Minnesota Lynx, really stepping in for Fee and kind of absorbing some of that rebounding offense that's missing from her right now. Jessica Shepard, which was a really good surprise. I'm not sure I had her to start, but I think definitely she should be on the team. Dallas Wings front court player, Brianna Stewart, Stewie. Stewie's going to be there. New York Liberty. Gabby Williams, who's been playing great pretty much. She had a really, I guess, she's always been great, but I think a full coming out party was the Paris Olympics and the performance she put on there for those Olympic Games in the gold medal match against the U.S. And ever since then, she's been rolling. I mean, I said before, she's always been a great player, but I think people are now noticing her more, and she makes her another All-Star appearance her second time. So for her, as a starter this time though, for the Golden State Valkyries, and Asia Wilson front court, of course, for your champion Las Vegas Aces. So that's looking for a T-shirt that says more than just your style. Beyond the Locker Room tees are made with premium quality fabric that's soft, comfortable, and built to last. Perfect whether you're at the game, at the gym, or out with friends. Every design is inspired by the mindset, passion, and culture of sports, giving you something that stands out wherever you go. Shop the full collection today at www.beyondlockerroom.store. Wear the mindset, live the game. Beyond the Locker Room. That's what we have here. We now move to the reserves. So the reserves now came out a few days ago. I think the big story coming out of the reserves was what the heck? How the Dream don't have at least one representative in the starters. So that was the one that kind of jumped out at everybody. But as we thought in this case here, once the reserves came, they would make right, and they did make right. So let's start here with Citron, from the Mystics. She's cold. She's cold, folks. She's cold. Citron, I had her a few of my ballots, I think, in the starting lineup. She's cold. At guard, Alicia Gray, Atlanta Dream, of course. Yeah, she's there, her fourth time at the All-Star game. Ryan Howard, her fourth time as well, too, from the Atlanta Dream, of course. Marina Mabry for the Toronto Tempo. I see ya. I must admit, I've never been a Marina fan because I find she's finding a way to fade away late in games when she's playing for Chicago and a few other squads. But boy, she's been fantastic this year for the Tempo. I mean, a drop of 53, you got to put that person on the team. She's been shooting lights out from three. So, hey, man, Mabry, first selection, good for her. I had Sykes for a while there in that Toronto slot. I think the time she was the leading scorer before she got hurt. But Mabry gets the nod for Toronto. Kelsey Plum for the Sparks. But I think in this case here, Plum's hurt right now. That was another big thing that's going on. How Plum wasn't even in starters, or it could be picked as a starter. Because if you look at the numbers, Plum would have been a starter for sure. So that was another thing that had people scratching their head a little bit. But as I said before, the reserves have been made right, as Plum is on, five-time All-Star. Courtney Williams, with stud buds right in the mix right there. Coming from the Lynx. That's the third player for them. Third All-Star team for her. Jackie Young, of course, the big lady's running mate. She's always going to be there as well too. She could put, she could make an argument being a starter as well too. Five-time All-Star now. The guard from the Aces. Kiki Efren, front court, Washington Mystics, and that combo with she and Citron is potent. And she's her second time as All-Star as well too. And back in the game. She had a tough season last year, but she's back. Jonquel Jones for the New York Liberty really plays a nice ball. She's here for her 6th All-Star appearance. Dominique Malonga, she's in her first time All-Star selection from Seattle. She gets the nod for the Storm, which is great. She has been playing fantastic. And Nneka Ogwumike, sister of Chiney, of course, is on ESPN, but she's pretty damn good on her own, as she's her 11th appearance in the All-Star game. She actually is a better player than her sister, so we'll call it a buck. For the Los Angeles Sparks, she's a beast. And she's a beast. And of course, last but definitely not least, the one and only Angel Reese from the Atlanta Dream. She's coming in as her 3rd All-Star appearance for her in the front court. So that there is your All-Stars coming through. I must admit, for the most part, Ionescu obviously had a lot of injuries at the beginning of the season, so it was going to be tough for her to get back in it. Anyone else that jumps out at me that made the team? Obviously, Phoenix having a tough year, so Alyssa Thomas and probably is better off with all the stuff. We'll get to some stuff with her in a second, but it's good to see that, it's good to see that they're really rewarding winning for the most part. I mean, if you look here, which is nice. I think, to be fair, I think All-Star should be an individual, item. So I'm on that side of the ledger, but I give props to, there's a lot of great players. They're playing on a lot of good teams this year that maybe their numbers, if they're on a worse team, they'll have bigger numbers. So I think that's what I'm saying in that sense. And you see here, 3 from the Fever, 3 from the Fever, 2 from the Wings, 3 from the Dream, 2 from the Liberty. Who else we got in there? 2 from the Aces, 2 for the Mystics. And I think that's pretty much all the multiples I see here. 2 from the Sparks in theory as well too. I will say this: I would love to see 2. How well the Valkyries are playing. I think they should have had 2. Honestly, I don't know, because I think Plum's hurt, so maybe Burton gets that spot, and that would be well deserved, because I think the Valkyries should have 2 on there. They are playing some mean ball right now. They are hard out if they got played in the first round. Good luck. That defense is stingy. They play gritty. They don't shoot it well, but they be coming at you. And I would have Burton on this team as the other All-Star replacement if Plum can't play. So we'll see how that plays out. Really fun team. You're gonna have a lot of fun players on here. They Plum's always a fun player if she plays. Olivia Miles, man, an All-Star setting. Woo-hoo! That's gonna be fun to see. So there's a lot of fun players on here to see coming up for this All-Star weekend. Great to see. The league's having a great season so far, and looking forward to the All-Star game, man. It's always fun to see. Hopefully this time around, it was a rough All-Star game last season, a really good one the year before. All-Star games are like this a lot of times. I know a lot of fans don't have a lot of patience for them, but they're not all going to be Picassos. You're going to have some duds. Hopefully last year is not a trend. Hopefully there's some inspiration watching some of the other All-Star games or in other sports that, hey, man, folks kind of bring it, and we'll see, man. We'll see. Sometimes it's, if the game gets out of control, if it starts looking like it's getting out of control, that's where the madness happens. Let's put it that way. So I'm hoping for a really good All-Star game. Okay, so up next, I really didn't want to discuss this. I really didn't want to do this, but when you have the politicians getting their nose in the things they shouldn't get into for any sport, you gotta cover it. You gotta cover it in some form or fashion. So here we go. I'm gonna get into this for a split second. This is my locker room take. Let's put it that way. 11 Republican lawmakers sent a letter to the WNBA Commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, demanding action to protect Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark from what they call repeated, quote, physical hostility and violence, end quote. The Congress members warned that unaddressed targeting could result in federal civil rights and hostile work environment investigations by the DOJ, the DOL, the Department of Labor, or the EEOC. I think that one's dealing with equity or something like that. Employment rights, I think. Oh boy, the push was led by House Republican Study Committee Chairman Rep. August Pfluger, cited specific incidents like Clark getting struck in the neck and suggested the attacks could be, quote, racially motivated, end quote. I don't, oh gosh. Okay, let me just put it this way. let me take the part from the commissioner in the response. And I say the commissioners, let me put it this way, because I think Adam Silver needs to get involved in this as well too. I'm not a big fan of Kathy Engelbert. I've never been a big fan of Kathy Engelbert. I think she's kind of, due to many forces, including Caitlin Clark, she's kind of fell into the success of the WNBA, not by, quite honestly, by her initiative. A lot to do with the players, the timing, the opportunity, and and as I said before, just being at that moment where the women's sports are in the zeitgeist. She just happened to get dumb luck to fall into this. She's never handled things well at all when it comes to the public relations, including handling stuff dealing around Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese or any of these stories coming out that spawned from those two players in that draft class, or anything else. Like, she's had her moments when it comes to expansion that have been pretty piss poor, to be quite honest with you. Labor negotiations, well, we went through that. You can check some of the old pods on that. What Fee had to say about her. Oh gosh, but on this one, she got to come out stern. Don't come out disrespectful to these clowns, but come out stern and stay, mind the pun, actually, and just state, like, hey man, appreciate your concerns, whatever the case may be, whatever the case. And I think she joint with she and Adam Silver. But, this is something that we manage within an organization. Officiating is under our purview. There's nothing here to be concerned about. I will even provide supporting data in this case, because I know it's out there. I've seen other folks put it on their YouTubers. There's been plenty of other folks that gotten flagrant flies and physical stuff happen to them. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole litany and the whole, laundry list of them, but, it is what it is. I always can tell in this case how many people actually watch the WNBA based on their reaction on certain things. And based on the reaction to this Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin Clark situation, I kind of know in this case how much you watch WNBA. So for folks that don't really watch the WNBA, let me give you a put in context when it comes to Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas is what we like to refer to as a player that likes to, dabble in the dark arts. Let's put it that way. If I had to put it in the NBA terminology of who she is in some ways, the closest person I could say is Draymond Green. I'll leave it there. If you watch sports, if you watch NBA, you gotta get where I'm coming from. This is where I'm leading to. Alyssa Thomas don't need it to be Caitlin Clark for Alyssa Thomas to do Alyssa Thomas things. Case in point, rookie season. She pulled down the ponytail and dragged her by the neck down to the floor of Angel Reese in a game on national TV. I don't even think it got called a foul, let alone a flagrant foul. And I'm sitting there going, like, what? How is that not a flagrant foul? Reese going up for a rebound, choke slammed essentially, and pulled by the ponytail by the same Alyssa Thomas. Now, pretty dirty play. Quite honestly, as dirty as the one she did for Clark. I'm not even quarreling at that point. I think in this case here, the referees missed it. Shocking. Referees being bad referees in the WNBA, something they got to work on. I'm sure in this case, in the response, the commissioner will state that. To be fair to the referees, though, they have been better this year than they have been in the past. But this is something that's going to be continuing to get better and better and improve. As the years go by, as the league gets more and more prominent, as you get more resources, you'll have more people interested in being a referee in the WNBA, which means the pool gets bigger, which means you have more talent to pick from a refereeing standpoint. That's the point there. They messed up on that one. It's in the scrum, things happen, people do type of stuff. But now we got 40 million cameras to see it after the fact. Should have been called a flagrant at that point. Fine. They gave her the flagrant, assessed it to her afterwards, they suspended her for a game or two. That does not, in this case here, mean, since we're going to wrap up the Alyssa Thomas stuff, that she should be getting death threats. All right? Like, enough with this. Enough. And I'll say this. I don't really care who gets upset with it, man. I've mentioned this before in Basketball Rewind. All money ain't good money. And if there's a certain faction in this case here only joining this, in this case, to raise hell and to cause havoc and have stochastic terrorism to players, you don't need that. Just because they're down with one player, be it if they like the player, and quite honestly with you, I don't even think half of them like the player. I think in this case here, I say half to most of these individuals are not Caitlin Clark fans. They can't even tell you how much Caitlin Clark's averaging or a PER is right now. No, what they are concerned about is fighting a culture war of whatever culture war they think they're fighting. And they're using her as a proxy. Now, I'll get into this part now when it comes to Caitlin. The league has to step up for the standpoint of the league's sake, because what you don't want is Congress sniffing around for nonsense, quite honestly. Congress should have its place in sports at times. You know when Congress should have its place in sports? When you have rampant drug use in this case here. I like what happened with Major League Baseball, the WWF at the time, at times in this case with boxing, they've been pulled to Congress. That makes sense. Concussion discussions, in this case for the NFL, they've been brought to Congress. That makes sense. Officiating is not underneath the purview of the Congress. Sorry, no matter what sport it is. That's nonsense. What? I didn't see the Congress in this case here coming up in this case in the 90s or the aughts. So you know what? Eric Lindros in this case here should be protected by the NHL. And we should really have an investigation on this and bring you the Congress in this case, Gary Bettman. What the heck's going on here? It's Eric Lindros, the first pick overall. One of your star players. You're not protecting him. Every chance you get in this case, Scott Stevens is taking a run at him. And he's getting multiple concussions all the time. Did I see anything? Was there any talk about that? Within NHL circles or some talk? Well, we didn't take the Congress. Another case example. And this plays right into these guys' hands, because in this case, this person, this athlete would be a guy, in this case would be an avatar for them in some ways too. Hey, I didn't see anybody during Peyton Manning's career worrying about, hey, you know what, we should bring you the Congress in this case to protect Peyton Manning. He's arguably your best player in this case here. He's a multi-time MVP. He's going to break every passing record possible. How is this dude here not protected in this case? He's getting multiple concussions all the time. What you NFL will do? Paul Tagliabue, or in this case here, the Joker they got now in this case is Commissioner. Goodell, hey, what's going on? We'll bring you here to Congress to get answers for civil rights against employee rights against Peyton Manning. Are you serious? Maybe Peyton Manning needs a better offensive line. Maybe you should get rid of the ball a little quicker. So here we are again, just to prove my point. I could go with a million other ones. I didn't see them worry about that with Michael Jordan. Like, I keep going down the list. And quite honestly, it's so overblown with the Caitlin Clark thing, really, because first year, okay, it was a little rough on her and stuff like that, no two ways, but a lot of the rookies got roughed up pretty good. I just mentioned the Angel Reese situation. They got roughed up pretty good. Since then, everything's kind of calmed down. We've all moved on. Quite honestly, the league has moved on. And I don't mean that in a derogatory or a pejorative way. What I mean is, we've all evened it out now. We know where her spot is, where everyone else's spot is. We've all moved in. The players, to some extent, have moved on. You don't see players sniping at her or anything like that. That was happening in the year one. The media that surrounds the WNBA has kind of calmed down the Caitlin story. I think part of that due to her injury last year, where she only played 12 games. And quite honestly, she really hasn't torn up the league in this case, where it's like, okay, we really need to talk about Caitlin. She's still a draw. No two ways about that. But she ain't out here dominating, just holding people to account. That ain't happening. So I think that's kind of calm things down. She and her team got their own things to worry about when it comes to that. That's a whole nother discussion, which I will do a pod about that at some point. Just waiting for some more empirical evidence to come through before I have that discussion. But Caitlin herself, she, after the year one, she had the Time magazine, kind of spoke out like, look, man, I ain't down with what you guys are doing, which I think was important for her. Now, all of them were talking about, oh, she sell out, this and that. Oh, they got to her. Like, no, dude, she's not trying to be some type of avatar for whatever your crusade that you think you're trying to do. And that's the point I was about to make with the commissioner, why both commissioners need to be on this. Because what you don't want, be it Caitlin Clark or any other player in the WNBA, getting used as some type of political prop for these jokers. You don't. So, like, from that perspective, nah. You need to put your foot down and say, nah, dude, we deal with our own officiating. You don't worry about that. We'll deal with our own stuff. Because the last time I checked, as I mentioned before, there's been some nasty fouls in the last couple of weeks in this case. We've had brouhahas breaking out, and I didn't see them calling for that. So we know what this is about. Now, I said before, this ain't a political podcast, so you could go there, and for those who want to do your reading or watching, you'll know why, in this case, why they're doing what they're doing. And I don't think it takes much of I don't think it takes you to be Einstein to figure that one out. Any sort of genius to figure out why they're doing what they're doing, based on what the conditions are right now for them at the moment. Anyways, I'll leave it there. WNBA, you got to step and put your foot forward. I don't expect much from Kathy Engelbert. She has a way of putting her foot in her mouth at all times. So I would be a little nervous as a WNBA fan, like, oh Lord, she gonna mess this up. Like if this is Adam Silver, I won't worry about it. Adam Silver will find a way to kind of finesse this to get this sorted out and kind of put this on the back burner. Kathy Engelbert has a way in this case of making things worse. So we'll see. I hope in this case she goes to Adam, and this has nothing to do with a sexist thing. This has more to do with Engelbert herself. She's just not that capable of a leader in my mind. But whomever she has behind her, and be it if from a legal team, from from a PR standpoint, from the NBA standpoint, to get in there and to discuss this and make sure they have a very forthright, forward-facing, forthright response to these jokers. Because if not, they're going to start making life a living hell and trying to make this league into a proxy for something else. Because that's what they'll like to do. That's what they're all about. Anyways, I'll leave it there, folks. I didn't want to go here, but these idiots forced me to go there today. It's a story. Anyways, guys, enjoy the W. All-Star games coming up. Lots of good stuff. The Tempo's playing pretty well considering the circumstances of the injuries right now. So keep watching the Tempo. Anyways, I'll leave it there. You know where to find me. On Facebook, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on X. I think I mentioned that one. Anyways, and you can find me right here on YouTube. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Look forward to talking to you guys next time. Keep it locked. Peace.